Alright, I wanted to do a video on feminism and how it has destroyed the nuclear family and how it's actually destroying or interfering with the male-female relationship dynamic. We're going to start with value. So one thing you got to ask yourself before engaging in a relationship or trying to initiate a relationship, what do you value in a relationship? Is it money? If that's the case, then money is going to equal time and energy. In a relationship, you're going to have to give that person your SO, time and energy. You're going to have to put effort in the relationship. And you're also going to have to sacrifice if you're going to pursue money. Something or someone is going to take a back seat. So you have to ask yourself, if that's your goal, what are you willing to sacrifice? Are you willing to sacrifice somebody for your dreams or your goal? I mean, if so, then by all means, go for it. But once you achieve your goal, what then? What next? And was it worth it? A lot of the times, as I watched this video of a Russian girl talking about divorce rates, and these businessmen, they're the breadwinners, they're making tons of money. This woman chose this man to be her husband, and she ends up being not happy as the relationship goes on. And so 6-7 years later, out of the blue, she's like, I want a divorce. Now she was sitting at home, watching TV shows and watching all types of media that display a woman as strong and independent and all this stuff. And she's like, why can't I have that? The thing is, you chose a man that had a drive to succeed, and you put value in the things that he could purchase with his income instead of putting value into him. So that's why you come up short when once you're in that reality. You're like, well, okay, I got all this stuff, but it's just me. This is one thing that men also gonna have to ask themselves too. Do you want, the car, the house, and all that other stuff? I mean, because you can get that, you can get the house, but do you have a home? Not a bachelor pad, because, a home and a bachelor pad are two different things. What my wife does with this place, that's a home. And the thing about it is when we do go after our dreams, sometimes we end up sacrificing something or someone we didn't intend to. There was a video I watched of a guy who, he's a motivational speaker, and he had his daughter come over, and, he was working in his office, and, she was talking to him, and, he was like, huh? And she's like, you know what, Dad, I'm gonna leave. I'll see you later. Okay, baby, blah, blah, blah. It dawned on him like a year later that, you know what, my daughter was trying to communicate with me about something that was very important. And yeah, she's 14, but she's only 14 once. That report, whatever I was working on, there's gonna be plenty of more coming in. And I could have worked on that in the middle of the night anyways, because I'm up like that. Now I'll never get that conversation back with my daughter. And that's this type of stuff that we sacrifice when we go after these so-called dreams of the big house, the big home, the empire that you want to build. Failing to realize that empires rise and then they crumble. Me and my cousin were talking about this, and we were saying, no one's going to be talking about that Porsche at your funeral. They're going to be talking about you and the times they spent with you. The good times, the bad times, but the things that were memorable, the things that were impressed in their mind. And so this is the stuff we got to remember when we live because we live in this Western culture that actually, promotes this stuff called the American dream. But we have more people that are depressed than ever before in society. But we're progressing, supposedly. Now, one thing I was discussing with my wife and numerous people, that, feminism has replaced a woman's desire for a fulfilling relationship, and in turn has replaced it with materialism and the drive for a better career or more money. Today's media talks about, social justice and social justice warriors, and a lot of these women who identify as feminists are taking up the fight. But interestingly enough, women are not fighters by nature. That is not what they do. They're nurturers. They inspire. They're wonderful counsel. And the woman will give you a perspective you haven't thought of and give you a means of executing your idea. And that's where women thrive, in a supportive role. Even if she's the breadwinner, she is still in a supportive role. And so if she were to embrace that instead of criticizing the fact that you don't make as much money as she does, she is still fulfilling her role as supporting, the family. And in today's society, that's not a bad thing. I've known plenty of great stay-at-home dads that, enjoy what they do. I saw in a talk show in the early 90s, it was on YouTube, and there was these successful, educated women, and they were talking about how they can't find any good men. But they've narrowed their selection down. They had an elitist mindset that if you didn't have an education that matched hers or that was better than hers, you weren't of any value to her. Keep in mind that biological clock is ticking. She only has so much time to make a family. But the career you can pursue at any point in your life. You can get serious and buckle down and do something. But that window to start a family is not too wide. And not even for men either, because you have to have energy to chase a 2-year-old around. Like, it's not easy when they start walking and stuff. So this is something that a lot of people don't take into account. And so that's the one thing is, if the male is not a breadwinner, this actually can cause the female to lose respect for the male. Now, if she's smart, she will value the male himself and not what money or how much money he can make. That's what plagues Western civilization, materialism. Okay, and it's no wonder where we're at as a society in the United States. Read an article of a husband that acted like a clueless intern, and ironically, he was somebody who embraced feminism fully. And the writer, who of course was a woman, was complaining that he just never took the initiative. He couldn't anticipate her needs. Part of that is when a man embraces feminism in its full ideological parameters, he loses drive, he loses ambition, and he will no longer anticipate anything. He will wait for orders. He will become a beta, and a very good beta at that. But he will become a beta male, and that is not desirable, not even for the most hardcore feminists, which this lady was, and had him put on a pussy hat and all these things. And she was still irritated, and she was her own worst enemy. When a male is able to take that leadership role, he is going to anticipate things. He is going to prepare for the quote-unquote inevitable. Understand that there's aspects of your role that you can take, and you can actually take the initiative and make her life a lot easier. In our house, in the mornings, I'm the one that usually cooks, okay? And I usually clean and wash the dishes, and she's running around with our son. And then I feed her and let her eat, and then I play with my son so she can eat in peace. When you have a kid, it's really hard to eat. And so it's really nice to be able to sit down and just be able to eat without messing with them. And so I try to give her that, but I take the initiative, okay? And I see that, okay, I'll make my food after she's done eating, because then I want to eat and I want to sit by myself and eat. And the same thing. So and at night she does the cooking, and so then I'm running around with him at night, and she's in the kitchen cooking and stuff like that. And so there's a trade-off, and it's just something to make life easier for everybody. So like I was saying, if you're in a relationship that's based on mutual respect, you're not a feminist, okay? And it's funny because I was reading also in that article of the 2 lesbians that wanted the sperm donor to pay child support. And I thought that was funny because basically all that guy was going to do was fulfill the traditional role as a provider. But it goes totally against the feminist logic. According to a feminist, they shouldn't need him anymore. He provided the sperm, done deal. Now we can raise a kid without the father or a male. We don't need him anymore. But now you want him to pay for the child, and you want him to provide and assume the role that you rejected initially. You know, this isn't to say that all lesbian couples do this, but I just found it very interesting that they desired him to fulfill the male provider role. The key to peaceful, harmonious coupling, I should say, a relationship, is, of course, mutual respect. Who's a provider in your family? Okay, figure that out, and then embrace it, and then move forward as a unit. The biggest thing that I've noticed is usually the man is the leader in the relationship. If it's flipped, I've seen a lot of relationships go bad. And this isn't to say that the woman can't lead, but traditionally, the male is the better executor. It's always good to have counsel, regardless of who's in what role. If you have your roles reversed, make sure you embrace them. That will lead to a better understanding of how you can proceed. And like I said, it's not necessarily about the money anymore. Society has changed. I mean, we can, my wife makes more money than me. But whenever I have an idea, guess what? We sit down, we talk, and we decide and discuss which way we're going to go. And typically, I'm the one who executes the plan. It isn't necessarily that I run the thing. It's just like, okay, she says, well, I'm thinking we should do this. And I'm like, okay, well, all right, how are we going to get this together? Blah, 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 blah. And then she's like, okay, we've come to an agreement. Go do it. And I do. And then sometimes I come to her and I'm like, I'm thinking about this. What do you think? Oh, baby, that's great. That is probably not going to work out too well. And I'm like, oh, I never thought of that. Thank you. And then we move forward. But I'm usually the one who executes it. So you have to figure out who does what. And in some instances, the woman is going to take the masculine role temporarily and move forward. Other ways, it's going to be more traditional, where the man devises a plan and consults his wife. It's a pet peeve of people in general to not consult somebody before making a decision that's going to impact everybody. It's funny, I was thinking that our society, the way it's based on capitalism, destroys pretty much all relationships and the nuclear family. It's not even necessarily feminism or anything like that on its own. It's a combination of things. But if you spend all your time at a job, you're not there with your wife, or you're not there with your husband, you're not there with your kids. You're sitting there working all the time, and you miss out on so many things. When it's all said and done, you're like, for what? A lot of people, they'll work really, really hard, get the big house, get the car, and then end up dying in a nursing home. So what was all that for? If I ended up losing it anyways, well, I could have just chilled and hung out with people and had this rich memories in my head, and now I don't have any of it. I have this repetitive, never-ending nightmare of going to this place and sitting in a cubicle with these fluorescent lights and never seeing any progress, never seeing anything change. And then the kids are raised by the school system. And you have what we have today, where people are sitting on Facebook and sharing videos and asking, what the hell is wrong with people? I don't know. There you go. Anyways, these are my thoughts on life and our society and relationships. Hope you enjoyed the video.